Yeah, I'm gonna double check it here in a sec.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 225 of the AR-15 podcast. Tonight we have Mad Dog Weapons System with us, and principally that would mean Mark Kexel. So, Mark, thank you for coming on and joining us. We have heard a lot of buzz about the things that you guys have going on over there. We're real excited. Oh, well, wait a minute, Mark. We now have a video. So
yeah, I think I figured it out. I had to close something to make it work. So here we go.
Nice.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's official. Mark has joined us in spirit and in person. So we're ready to get started with tonight's episode. JD, why don't you let the folks know how they can support us with a t-shirt?
You know what? We've teamed up with Jake over at Patriot Patch Company, and we've put out the AR-15 podcast shirts. It helps spread the word about hopefully your favorite Black Rifle podcast. If you're listening, it's probably it. We're teaming up with them. They got patches and stickers over there too. Each one of the items that you buy over there, Jake kicks us back a portion of the sale to help support the show. Into a SHOT Show this year. We've got some mics to either rent or purchase this year. I'm not sure, depending on how many shirts are sold, we'll determine that. But it helps us with some of the recording equipment and the costs and stuff of putting this show on. Reed and I don't take any money from the show. Anthony tried to once, and we made him live in California for the rest of his life. So we really appreciate your support. Jason and Tom, who support monthly, we appreciate you too. And if you want to help us out, maybe by a sponsorship or advertising, you can always email me, jd.ar15podcast@gmail.com. That's jd.ar15podcast@gmail.com. And Patriot Patch Company is where you can go to grab those shirts. There's a link in the show notes. And we also tag them in all of our social media.
All right. Excellent. Well, so, Mark, we have a tendency to try to out-brag each other on what we've been doing this last week with firearms of any sort. So we're going to let you go. So JD and I will be suitably humbled when you tell us all the awesome things you get to do in a week.
Sure. Thanks. Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Really humbled by an opportunity like this. We are continually striving to change the market as much as we can and improve upon what's already out there in any way possible. We hit a pretty big milestone recently. One of our cartridges, it's called the 277 Wolverine. Starline just started producing factory head stamped brass for it. That's a big step for a cartridge. The Wolverine is probably our best selling cartridge, probably our most popular at this point, and it just seems to have taken a life of its own. We're just kind of at the reins at this point. It's not often that a Wildcat cartridge makes it to this step in just a few years, and it has been, a lot of tireless work, a lot of promoting, and to be honest, most of the shooting community have done most of the promoting themselves, which is incredible. I haven't actually had to do a lot of it. I did get it started. We launched it, but the community out there are the ones that have really taken it to where it's at now. This past week, we've shipped out about 37,000 cases to the community. They crowdfunded the order actually through Starline. We went through a crowdfund site. The first one went through successfully. The second one got canceled by the site because they realized it was somehow firearms related, and I think the whole world out there knows how that goes. But even though they canceled the second crowdfund, all the folks pre-ordered all the brass, and we sold 42,000 cases all together in 72 hours. So
wow.
Yeah.
I don't think JD and I will rate compared to that. Moving and shaking the firearms industry to putzing around on the fringes. Yeah, no comparison. JD, why don't you tell us what you've been up to?
Well, I picked up a rifle on Saturday that I've been waiting for a long time to finally pull the trigger on. And I picked up a Noveske Infidel 13.7-inch barrel with the pin-welded flaming pig on it. It's beautiful. It's everything I wanted it to be. I sang its songs. It's sat right next to my bed for the last 7 days. I haven't been able to shoot it though. My son had a club ball tournament, so we were out at the baseball field all weekend. And the week's just hectic. So the whole family's going out to shoot on Saturday. We're bringing everything out, and I'll finally get to shoot it. But that has been at the top of my bucket list for a long time. So finally able to get it. And I shared some pictures on Instagram and Facebook of it. And I kept myself out of it because I was kind of drooling, and, you know, my cheeks get red when I'm excited and flustered and stuff like that. So my wife's pretty jealous.
That's awesome. And the new gun's like a new baby in the house, you know?
Absolutely. And you don't have, it doesn't cry. It doesn't wake you up in the middle of the night. You do have to feed it, and it is pretty expensive, but you don't have to change its diapers.
That's the best part right there.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking it was more like a new mail order bride. I was wondering what your wife's thinking about that.
Yeah, my wife's scary, so I'm not even going to approach that subject.
So
behind every strong man is a stronger, crazier woman, right? Oh wait, I better not.
Yeah. She's coming down the stairs.
I gotta remember I'm at the home office right now, not at work.
See, I am nearing completion on my A2 build, so it's what I carried in the Marine Corps, and I'm very fond of it. So, in terms of I guess sentimental attachment. So I decided I'd go ahead and put one together and keep it in the safe. I plan to take it out this weekend and zero it and get it all ready.
Some about one of the classics, they're great rifles.
And I forgot to mention, Reed, or actually the listeners, I got a box from Reed this week. Like the long promised box. It's been like a year and a half or so, and it finally showed up. In other news, Anthony's handguard is still sitting on my workbench in my office. It's actually in a box now, so it can be shipped, but it hasn't made it quite out the door into the post office yet. So,
well, it hasn't made it out of your office.
No, not even close. Maybe Anthony will just pick it up when he comes to stay at my house for SHOT Show this year.
Yeah, that would probably be his best bet. Well, I tell you what, let us turn to the main topic. So, Mark, we want to really kind of explore a lot of what's going on over there at Mad Dog Weapon Systems.
Sure.
But why don't we start with you?
Okay.
Why don't you tell us, how you come to be where you are today?
Okay.
How is it that you're developing these cartridges and running the company?
Great. All right. I guess we'll start when I was probably around 8 years old in the Forest Preserve up in Wisconsin. And, my dad let me shoot his 22 off of his shoulder because I wasn't quite strong enough to hold it up myself and all that good stuff. And we were shooting at aluminum pie tins. And it's fair to say I fell in love with shooting sports at that time. As I grew up, I've been in firearms in one way or another. Not quite what I'm doing now, but, I'm a Illinois State certified firearms instructor and all kinds of fun stuff like that. A lot of handgun work and things like that. Anyhow, one of the more fun things about the history of the company and is the movie Red Dawn. Okay, it's it's a cult classic. It's one of my favorite movies ever. And when I was a young guy, I saw Red Dawn, and it inspired me in a lot of ways about survivalism and firearms and training and all sorts of things. And I think that's I think that had a lot to do with pressing my enthusiasm for the sport. But anyhow, you fast forward a bunch of years and shooting ARs from off the rack and then wanting to tinker a little bit. And I think that rifles in general have become kind of like, some guys are into cars, right? So I like to compare a lot. Some guys just want to drive them and they put gas in them, and that's great. Some guys, know how to check the air pressure and put air in. That's great. Some guys know how to change their own oil, and they're taking these steps further by further. And as they get more interest in how the car works and how can they make it faster, then they start doing some motor work and they start doing some exhaust work. And heck, they might even start doing some body work. And, before you know it, they've turned into more than just a tinkerer, somebody who really likes to dive in, understand how the machine works, understand what you can do to improve it, all the different things you can potentially do with it. And I think there's a lot of correlation there. You know, I see guns a lot like vehicles. You know, they have intended purposes. You know, some are better at some things than others. You know, there's a difference between a Porsche and a pickup truck and a Jeep, and they have different intended uses. And I think cartridges are the same way. They're a lot like, you know, they're a lot like cars. They're a lot like knives or hammers. There's designed for different things. They each excel at something, and some of them are good at a lot of things. About 4 years ago, I was a member of a forum that was a real inspiration as far as getting into reloading. It was the 6.8 forums. And at the time, it was a great place, lots of great people there, a lot of sharing and, you know, and friendly folks. And I think there's still some of that there. It's changed a little bit, but still a great place. And I got into the 6.8 SPC for a minute, and I realized that over the years, you know, I had dreamed of or thought of this cartridge that would be somewhere between a 5.56 and a 7.62 by 39, and it didn't quite exist yet. The Blackout had come out, and it didn't quite do exactly what it was that I wanted to do. I was a little bit more focused on the, you know, the supersonic end of it than the subsonic. Now, you know, I live in Illinois, and Illinois is a, you know, commie state. You know, there's no SBRs, there's no suppressors, that type of thing. So the Blackout really didn't interest me much, and it's a great cartridge. I want to make something clear. They're all great cartridges. They all have, you know, their uses. There is no cartridge wars or cartridge hate in my world. But like a hammer or like a car, you know, you pick certain ones because you want to do certain things with it, and that's just how it goes. Certain people like certain types of cars, and some people don't, and that's just how it goes. Anyhow, I talked to one of the vendors on 6.8 forums, a guy named Harrison Bean. I've always told him, you know, that I owe him a lot. I had this concept of using a 6.8 bullet in a 5.56 case, similar to the benefits of a Blackout, where it's just a barrel change, but you get, you know, almost the performance of the 6.8 SPC. And he had said, well, believe it or not, I've actually drawn something similar to that a ways back, and I'll give you the print. So he gave me the print, and I asked him if he wanted anything for it. He said no, just happy to see somebody doing it. And I thought that that was great. You know, our community is a community full of fellow enthusiasts that support each other a lot. I don't think you see a lot of that in a lot of other communities, and, you know, I'm hooked, and so are a lot of other people. Anyhow, I took this print, and this was my first dive into doing wildcatting, and grabbed a couple of good friends that I had met on the forum and some locally, and said, hey, how do I do this? You know, again, I think I said before we went on air is that I fully admit I have no idea what I'm doing at all whatsoever. It's just kind of happening, and I'm just doing what I can here to make it work. I had no experience in wildcatting and barely any experience in reloading at all whatsoever when we launched the Wolverine, which again was our first one. It helped us launch the company, actually. I started Mad Dog Weapon Systems. There's a cool personal story about the name of the company and all that, you know. But I started the company to kind of get into wildcatting and starting to launch cartridges. Wolverine was the first one. Now we've got a handful of them now that are all great performers, and they're, you know, like the cars. We've got our pickup trucks and our Jeeps and our Porsches and all that good stuff. But over the years, just through a lot of networking, and, you know, not only with the joke of I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but one thing, you know, my dad taught me type of deal is to surround yourself with really intelligent people and admit that you're not the smartest person in the world and you're going to need help. So that's what I did. I've got a bunch of friends now that, again, are fellow enthusiasts that helped with the development of the 277 Wolverine. And I learned the process by learning from them while we were doing it. And at this point, after the Wolverine, we've launched other cartridges like the 6mm Mongoose, the 358 Yeti, the 7 VAR. There's a handful of them that we have now that are ours, and they've all been developed by the shooting community. So this is not, and I'm not, and our company is not some deep pockets person affiliated with Freedom Group or something crazy like that. It is a group of people that have gotten together that want to make cartridges that fit their need at the time. And if they become popular, they become popular, and we launch them production And if they don't, they don't. We'll still make some custom barrels and some custom chamberings for people, and that's great. But the ones that become popular, we'll put them into production. If you ever go to our website, you'll see the ones that we currently offer and the ones that we're working on and things like that. But it's really about the community and having this network that we've built. Wildcatters are crazy people, kind of like mad scientists, if you will. They're not right in the head. None of us are. Okay. You're constantly pushing the envelope. You're constantly saying, okay, well, this cartridge exists, great, and it does this, but how can I make it better? Or how can I get, better performance out of something of the same similar design? And then, unlike guys that work on cars, all of a sudden you're working on superchargers, and the lower half of your house becomes one big reloading room, and you've got cases and cans of powder and 30 piles of die sets, and you don't even know if you're ever going to use them or not, but just in case you need them, they're there, and you tinker. And as you tinker, you come up with these things, and if they catch on, they catch on, and if they don't, they don't, and that's great. At the end of the day, you might love something, and you may have a custom rifle in that chambering, and that's great, but if the community's not interested in it, it's not a business venture at that point. It's just, it won't sell. We've been lucky enough that most notably, again, the Wolverine has caught on to the point where we don't even really have to do much other than help steer the ship and push it towards Sammy. It's probably one of the fastest growing wildcats we've ever seen in the history. It's only been around for about 3.5 years, and it's taken leaps and bounds versus other wildcats that have gone production. So we're really proud of that. And on a daily basis, what do? Well, we support each other on our forum and all of our Facebook pages and try to answer everybody's questions, and watching other people develop their own loads for all their own different cartridges, or even if there's some of ours, it doesn't matter. I want to go back to the community, the group of guys out there that have really put in the blood, sweat, and tears to make things happen. It's not just our company or me or anything like that. It's a whole group of people that made this thing happen, and we're not stopping.
So, Mark, let me ask you some questions. I think you really kind of opened some doors for us that I'd like to explore. So let's start with the Wolverine. All right.
Sure.
So, in terms of the idea of the Wolverine, was that generated because of a specific need, or was it just kind of, I don't know, happenstance that you married the components together and it just seemed to work? How did you get from, need to, the inception of the cartridge?
Sure. What it came down to is there was a night at my kitchen table where, after all these years of the constant battles between the 223 and 7.62 by 39 AR-8K guys, whatever, that I've always wanted this cartridge that was sort of in between. And after having seen the Blackout and the 6.8 SPC and how they went to market, and their niches and what they're good at, I said, wow, what I really want is like a 6.8 Blackout type of thing. So what I'm talking about here is I want to use 6.8 bullets with higher BCs and SDs, using the same barrel swap concept as the 300 Blackout, because that just makes it easy. You take a standard AR-15 and you just replace your barrel, and all of a sudden you have a completely different performing, a completely different profiled cartridge doing different stuff. I think that's great. The options that you have in the AR-15 platform are pretty much endless, other than dimensionally. At some point you can't have this be that long, and it can't be this big. At the kitchen table, I said, all right, well, basically what I want to do is I want to take this 5.56 case, and similar to the Blackout, I'm going to have to, bump it back a bit, and then I want to use a 6.8 bullet in it, but it's going to have to be this certain family of bullets, because the 270 Win bullets are way too big and heavy, so it's the 6.8 SPC style bullets, and we started there. And some of us, we took a couple pictures of basically just shoving a 6.8 bullet in a 5.56 case, and although that's not the real concept of it, because we hadn't bumped the shoulders back or anything, it was one of those moments where it's like, yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's what I want to do. How do I make this happen? So I reached out to Harrison from ARP. and he helped me with the print and some cartridge design, and we finalized and basically went and out of pocket. We started the company, went and purchased a bunch of tooling originally because
Mark, before we go too far, can you define what the print is?
Sure. Yeah. So a cartridge in a chamber. So yeah, everybody knows the barrel, and in the barrel at the back end where the boom happens is the area called the chamber. Now, a cartridge composed of case, bullet, primer, powder comes in different shapes and sizes, right? So in order to make the proper sized chamber, or hole in the back, if you will, to match your cartridge, you have to develop a reamer print. That's really the first step. So after you conceptualize what it is that you want to accomplish, and what parent case you want to use, and what family of bullets you want to use, you have to develop a tool that you dive into the back end of a barrel blank to ream out the chamber, so that your new bred cartridge goes in the chamber and fires down the barrel. There's a couple of companies out there. There's a few of them that are really good. We use JGS Precision a lot for our tooling, our reamer prints and such. Now, developing an actual reamer print is really, really, really hard and really, really, really complicated. And again, that's why you want to surround yourself with people that have done this before. You talk to people about the concept that you want, and we do it all the time. We get emails and phone calls and people on the forums and everything saying, hey, I want to take a 338 bullet and put it in a 308 case, but shoot it out of this. And we all talk about it. We're like, okay, well, you'll have to make the case about this size. It'll only hold about this much powder. The overall length is going to be restricted to this. And then you get a concept, right? And you can talk to places like JGS or PT&G or whoever you choose and say, hey, here's my concept. And to have somebody do an actual reamer print for you will cost a little bit of money, okay? Or you're lucky enough to have somebody that you can reach out to that will help you with the print. And it's a very technical looking drawing. It looks nothing like what the cartridge is going to look like. It looks like a bunch of crazy numbers and dimensions all over an Excel spreadsheet with something that looks like a cartridge in the middle. When I saw my very first one, I said, that's not what it's going to look like. Is it? Like, no, that's not what it's going to look like. It's just for the dimensions. So there's a lot of learning involved. So once you get this reamer print done, that says this is going to be the size and the shape of the cartridge with a little bit of wiggle room, so that you can take this cartridge that you're developing and get it into a barrel and fire it.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. All right. So you got the print, mm-hmm. and you're taking the next steps with the Wolverine. So tell me how that goes.
Sure. So we ordered the tooling. Expensive, right? So you got to order some reamers, and you got to order some headspace gauges, and you got to get yourself some barrel blanks in the proper caliber. 270 cal blanks, what twist rate you want, what kind of rifling you want. There's some things involved that you want to, again, do your research and make sure that you're putting together what it is that you want to put together here. You, again, reach out and network, or you can just pay out of pocket to have somebody chamber a barrel for you using your reamer, reamer being made by your reamer print. And then the actual cartridge work, it's a lot of fun too, because you don't have anything to make it. You need special dies and things like that to shape the brass and seat your bullets the way you want the cartridge to end up. And again, if you have some pretty crafty, clever friends out there, or you pay out of pocket for somebody to do it, with the Wolverine, for example, even though we didn't have die sets, we took a few different die sets and messed with them, cut them in half, and changed some things and bored out some stuff to kind of make the closest thing to the actual cartridge that we could come up with. Again, some of that mad scientist stuff to make the first Wolverine cartridge itself. So once you've got your barrel chambered, you've got some headspace gauges. So when you order your reamer, you want to also order some headspace gauges so that you can build your rifle properly and make sure that everything is in the spec that it's supposed to be. Then you've got to develop your first rounds to fire, which is just as much of a challenge. You're talking, again, a bunch of money, a bunch of time, and hopefully a bunch of friends there helping you out doing it. And then you get into load development. And we could talk about load development. That's a world of its own.
Let me ask you a question about that real quick.
Yeah.
So you've conceptualized the cartridge.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a case that's viable,
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to start working up the loads.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is that you basically figure out where you want to be in terms of pressure and performance, and you start hunting for the powder that's kind of in that range. Is that close?
Yeah. So if you, the best one I can use based on experience would be the Wolverine. So it, in the beginning, it uses a 6.8 bullet. So does it use 6.8 SPC powders? No. It's using a 5.56 case. So does it use 5.56 powders? No. Is it similar to the Blackout? Yeah. But does it use Blackout powders? No, they're a little bit too fast. So the way you approach load development is you look at case volume, you look at bore diameter, you look at the weight of the projectiles you're trying to push, and you look for anything out there that's comparable to it. So 7 Kurtz or something like that, right? And who's loading 7 Kurtz and what kind of powders are they using? Because it's kind of the same size and weight projectile, and it's kind of the same size case. And you spend some more money and experiment using a bunch of different powders. The Wolverine's window is from the faster end of 223 and 6.8 to the slower end of 300 Blackout. So AA 1680, Shooter's World Blackout powder, AA 2200 in some cases, and a lot of it is just experimenting. And when it comes to pressure, in the beginning, unless you're going to immediately hook up a pressure trace system or something similar, you're reading cases and reading primers and saying, am I even close? You start a ladder and you're starting to flatten primers or push them out, you stop and you're done. Okay, that's not going to work. It takes a lot of time. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and trial and error, and going out and shooting and watching your velocities and your pressures and saying, well, this isn't going to work. Let's try some of this powder, and it should be in the window. And it took about, I would say it took about a good 3 to 4 months solid of R&D to really, finalize a few very basic loads, powder and bullet, for the Wolverine. Different barrels behave differently, different cases behave differently, and there's so many variables out there that you can't rush this at all. Anybody who says it's easy is lying. Anybody who says they can take care of it and do it in a minute or two, that's unrealistic. It takes time. There's a lot of experimenting. There's a lot of variables involved. There's a lot of research that you have to do, a lot of comparing to other cartridges and saying, okay, this is similar to this. Maybe this will work. Let's give it a shot. Let's be safe, right? Start low and work your way up. Let's be safe and see what it does. We have a saying around here. It's just math. When people try to get into like cartridge wars and my does this and velocity, hey, look, it's just math, right? At the end of the day, no matter how much you love this, that, or the other thing, it's just math. Velocity, weight, BC, SD, period. That's it. It's all. If all we all did was just put up charts, performance charts, and nobody talked, they would all speak for themselves. You just look at it like through a menu. I want this one because it does this. You get marketing and all that involved, and it's a different story. But it's a lot of time. It does cost money. Be prepared to fail numerous times. Be prepared to scare the living out of yourself because you think you may have just ruptured a case and shot your bolt across the field or whatever. But be safe. Go slow. Do your research. Talk to people. There's a lot of people out there. Again, our community is strong. Talk to people, ask questions. Again, none of us knows everything, right? So talk to the people that have done it before. And that's why we started the forum that we started, because it is a crew of wildcatters helping people that are interested in wildcatting and helping keep them safe while they play with the things they want to play with.
I think one of the first questions I asked Mark was on our Facebook page. We had quite the spirited discussion going on when we posted that you were going to be on today. And I asked, how many of your employees posted on that page? None of them are employees. They're all just rabid Wildcat fans. So we definitely see the passion of the innovation that's going on there. I thought for a fact that Jared worked for you. I was pretty sure he worked in the shop. He was a paid employee. He got benefits, because that dude is all about what you're doing.
Thanks. Yeah. So Jared's a great guy. So I am, again, completely humbled by the friends that I've made in the industry, locally, through our group, through our family. It's the best group of guys I know, honestly, because there's not a lot of places out there where someone can raise their hand and say, I need a little help here, and not have people dump on them. Everybody is super happy to help. It's a passion. It's a passion of ours to try to, be creative and push things here and there and develop new things and see if they do what we want to do. And we want to help people do that and keep them safe at the same time. I don't know how many conversations we've had out there where people will say, well, I'm going to do this, and 15 people chime in. Don't do it. Don't, wrong, bad, danger, Will Robinson. You're going to break stuff and hurt yourself, and stop. Some other communities, people might say, whatever, let's see what he does and what happens. And ooh, that's too bad for him. We're not like that. Our community is, pretty tight, super helpful.
So that brings up a question for me now. So in terms of what you're using to test the cartridges, I mean, are we just talking basically you go out, you have someone build you a custom bolt gun or a custom barrel for an AR, and you're just going to get behind the trigger? Or do you have something that's a little more mechanical, less pretty, where it's just a barrel, a basic chamber, and a lockup and a firing pin so that you can get in there and do your testing away from the explosion component of it? Or, I mean, are you guys like the right stuff with the rocket air? You just strap a rocket to your ass and you shoot for the moon?
I think our new logo might be a pit bull with a rocket strapped to its ass. We are a little crazy in that way. Again, I want to reiterate that it's not as crazy if you're educated and if you've done your research. So if you know that, you can grab any of the different reloading books out there from 1974 to current, and you can find something similar to what you're doing, and you start at the very low end of what that is, and you let the first round fly, and you wear your eye protection, right? And if you want to use a string, you go ahead. That's great to pull the trigger. But again, when you are surrounded by people that have done this before, and you're willing to talk and listen is huge. A show like this it's hard for me to just talk and talk. I like to listen a lot. You have to be able to listen. When people that have been doing this for a long time or have done it before tell you, you might not want to do that at your own risk, you might want to start lower, you should listen, okay? People are out there to keep you safe. We are the type where generally what we run everything in is in, the MSR AR-15 platform. So we're a little crazy, and we'll just chamber stuff and look for something comparable, and we'll get behind the rifle and pull the trigger and let the first one fly and see how it does. Now, I'm not suggesting, other people do that, but that is our approach generally. Have we blown primers? Yeah. It's kind of part of the deal. You got to, figure out what your max is. And have we ruptured cases? Yeah. Is that unsafe? Yeah. But if you know that you're in the world, if you're in the realm of what you should be able to accomplish, and you start low and work up, and you have other experienced people giving you guidance, then you should be able to do the same thing. I am a huge proponent of, hey, look, guys, anybody can do this. Anybody can do what Mad Dog did, what I did, what our group does. Anybody can do this. If you really, truly have a concept, you can make it happen. I'm telling you right now, talk to people and listen. Ask for advice. It's free. Tooling is not. Your eyes are not. Advice is free.
So you bring a cartridge to the point where it satisfies your intent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have you ever had a cartridge where you were like, this just isn't doing what I wanted it to do? I cannot zero in on the load that makes it perform the way I thought it should, or,
sure.
I'm not getting the performance out of it with the best I can throw out of it. Is there a point where you say, yeah, it's a dud? It's something that just isn't going to work for what I want it to do.
Absolutely. Not unlike anything else where you throw spaghetti at the wall and it doesn't stick. You've got the same thing here. So we're a big fan of the 5.56 case family of cartridges because of the utility and the versatility of them. One of the things we had been working on for quite a while was a 6.5 version of the Wolverine or the Mongoose 5.56 case, and we had played with it a little bit, and we realized that the better of the 6.5 bullets, they just eat up way too much case capacity, and the lighter bullets that don't eat up as much case capacity don't have the high BCs. So you're kind of in this world of like, and is it worth it type of thing? Is all this work going to pay off and give me something that, and I hate the word better, but I use it too, that's better than something that's already out there or has an advantage over something that's already out there that I can just go buy. If it's just something that you want, like, I mean, I've seen Volkswagen Bugs out there with those crazy loud mufflers and spoilers. If that's what you want, then do it. Go ahead and get yourself a rifle chambered in it and call it the 243 John Smith. I don't care. That's great. But there's a difference between that and other people, which is where the business end of it comes. Other people saying, oh yeah, that's something that's worth investing in. Create your own cartridge, draw it on a bar napkin for all I care, and then talk to people about it. But if it doesn't really do anything, and I hate the word better, than something that's already out there, then it's your cartridge, and and that's great and good for you, and hang it on your wall and say, I did that. Please do. That's awesome. But taking it to market's a different story. The 6.5 version of our Wolverine Mongoose is not going to go to market. It's not going to happen because really it's just, dud is a rough, kind of a harsh word, but it's a non-performer. So,
right.
There's no point.
So the Wolverine, it speaks to you. The Wolverine goes out and it performs the way that you presumably had hoped it had, or maybe it exceeds your expectations, and you start getting some buzz.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a point, and you've taken it to the point where you're going to get it SAMI certified, right?
We are on the road. So it needs a sponsor and all that, but it's coming, and yes.
So once you get it past that particular step,
mm-hmm.
is that kind of like, I've arrived, where's my champagne? Where's the trophy? I've arrived kind of moment? Or is there so much more at that point that you're just not counting all your eggs until they've hatched?
Yeah, that's a fun one. So in the beginning, I thought that the big milestone was going to be seeing ammo on Walmart shelves, right? That'll happen someday, but we're not close to that yet. But I'm completely satisfied and impressed, and my expectations have been exceeded by the versatility, the popularity, and the rapid growth of the 277 Wolverine on its own. So the first milestone was after I talked to Harrison at ARP, him providing a print for me. I mean, I was just a guy talking about a concept. Boom, I've got a print. I can go make a tool now. Woohoo! Awesome. Tooling's on the way. I've got guys that are going to help me. Whoa, first barrel made. I still have it. Our very first Packmore barrel is in my shop in a very special place, in the museum, if you will, encased in, unbreakable glass, you name it. But first barrel in my cartridge. Wow. Then the first round was made. Wow, another milestone. First bullet downrange. Whoa, this is great. The gun cycled, right? And then we got to, wow, we're doing load development now. And wow, we're pushing a 90 grain bullet at 2750 feet per second out of a 16-inch 5.56 cased cap. Whoa, that's crazy. And then all the different bullet types that we tried, and then all the different barrel lengths and the performance, what it does is just, it was just overwhelming watching this thing blossom and grow. And then it got to other people buying barrels. Hey, I want one of those. I want one of those. I want one of those, and not being able to keep up with production. not being able to have enough barrels in stock for all of, we've sold over a couple thousand of them at this point. 10.5 inch, 8.5 inch, 16 inch, 14.5, 18, 20, you name it, bolt guns, Savage barrels, AR barrels, whatever. And if you don't sit back once in a while and just look around and say, wow, look at what it's doing, you're shorting yourself, because every one of those little milestones is huge compared to some other conceptual cartridge that never went anywhere. Now, 3 years later, 3.5 years later, we've got Starland brass. We've got our own head stamp brass. So I'm going to try this really. I don't know if this is going to work, but this right here, that's not going to work. Anyways, I'm trying on the webcam. That right there is a huge milestone. That costs, $12,000, $13,000 to do. And the community did it on their own. They paid for it. Not me. They did. Talk about milestones. I mean, I don't know how to be more proud of everybody than that. We're talking to companies like Corbon and Hornady and stuff like that now. Now we're going to go to SHOT and hang out with all those guys, and they're interested in our concepts. And I mean, those are milestones that are, you would think in the beginning are unobtainable. When this cartridge, from the reamer print to head stamped brass for it, we've got a couple of ammunition manufacturers that are making factory ammo for it now. Barrels are flying off the shelves. People are pushing the thing. When it goes Sammy, that's going to be a day of, that's going to be a day of champagne with another champagne, because that's where all of a sudden it's recognized industry-wide, not just community-wide. I'm totally fine and happy with where it's at. Community-wide, it's accepted and people love it. But to have a company like Hornady or Remington, I mean, you name it, say, you know what, we're going to invest in this. We believe in it as well. People want it. It's going to be a money maker for us. Boom. Now it's on gun shop ammo shelves, and there's rifles on the racks that say, chambered into, that's going to be I don't know what I'm going to do on that day. I might book a long weekend in Miami or something. I don't really know. It's going to be a good time. But I'm incredible. Every one of them is a milestone to be proud of, period, no matter who you are or what cartridge it is. And at this, where it's at now, I never expected to even get here in the first place. So I'm completely overwhelmed at this point already.
Well, let me ask you this question from the perspective of a businessman. So, I have a fundamental understanding of SAMI in terms of its purpose. Mm-hmm. And I have a fundamental understanding of some of the mechanisms that get a cartridge there. Mm-hmm. But tell me, is it the case that once it's certified, that it's essentially kind of a public domain? Yeah. Anybody can go out and produce brass. Anybody can go out and load the cartridge. And so nobody is beholden to you mm-hmm. for the work they do to create the projectiles and earn money in the consumer space. Is this something that you still are participating in as far as the industry goes to generate income? I mean, is it because you were the maker that you generate income, or because you're first to market, people go to you first? Or, I mean, do you get a royalty? I mean, is there something that says, okay, I haven't just sold, the microprocessor to Texas Instruments and all I get is a gold watch on retirement kind of thing?
Yeah. It's public domain already. So we released the prints, Reamer Engage prints, to the public months ago. That's why there's other barrel makers out there making their own barrels. Excalibur, McGowan makes barrels, Sheepdog, Radical, they make barrels for it. We released it because we knew that you have to, again, you got to kind of put your ego aside a little bit, right? You can be happy and proud, but you got to put your ego aside and say, hey, if what I want, and if what the company wants, and if what the community wants is for this cartridge to go public, then you have to let it go public. You have to let it go. You can't miser the cartridge. A lot of other cartridges in the past have been kept proprietary for way too long, and it ended up hurting them a little bit, and ended up, causing a little sour grapes with the community. And we're not interested in that. If you guys are interested in this thing and you want it, and we want you to want it, and we want you to have it, and that's great. Right now, we're the most popular barrel maker because we're the original. We're selling more barrels than the other barrel makers are, and I like that part. That's great. But eventually, what's going to happen is when companies like Faxon and McGowan and Nexcal and all those other, they're making we're out of it. There's no royalties. There's none of that. The print, says developed by Mad Dog Weapon Systems, which is great. We get some notoriety there. Our MDWS is in the cartridge name, and if that sticks, great. If not, that's fine too. What ends up happening is when you release the cartridge to public domain, what you're saying is I'm no longer holding this back from all of you. If you guys really want this, you guys go ahead. If I was going to try to keep it proprietary, I might sell a barrel here, a barrel there, and I'm the one making all the profit, or I might sell a die set here and there, but it's not going to grow. You're not going to get onto Walmart shelves if you keep it proprietary. That's not how it works. If you really think that you're going to become a millionaire off of the design of a cartridge, that's not going to happen. Because in order for that cartridge to succeed, you have to let the community show the industry that they want it. And in order to do that, you have to let it go. So we made the prints and everything public months and months ago. Other companies started making barrels. There's companies out there making factory ammunition for it. And if we didn't do that, there wouldn't be. So literally it would just be like me in my garage, like polishing a chamber on a barrel that I sold this week. If that's what you want to do, then that's awesome. But if you really want to see it grow and the community wants it, then you have to let it go. You have to take it to the next level. And taking it to the next level is providing all the specs and all the load development you've done, and be proud of it and say, hey, this is what we've accomplished. Look at this thing, check it out. And then they say, you know what, we do want that. And there's your moment. There's your moment of fame. There's your pride. Wow, they're interested in it. They want to do it. Once it goes SAMI, anybody can make anything they want for it, and it's standardized. SAMI is we're a SAMI member, by the way. SAMI is awesome in the regard that everything is standardized. A lot of people call it SAMI approved or SAMI certified or whatever term they want to use. At the end of the day, what it really is it's standardized. It's saying, dear industry, if you're going to make something called this is what it is. This is the chamber spec. This is the cartridge spec. Have at it. If you deviate from this, it's no longer called this. If it's called this, it's this. Otherwise, it's not. And you want that because in the beginning, you keep a cartridge proprietary for a while, and it's to protect the integrity of the cartridge. So if we had released everything to the public in the very beginning, you'd have like the 277 Wolverine Express, the 277 Wolverine Short, the 277 Wolverine AI, I mean, whatever, right? And it would just confuse the market. So you keep it proprietary long enough until you say, okay, the world knows what it is. They know where it came from. They know the overall design and the general specs, and we release the print. So this is the spec. And then when you get to the step of where you're going to start pushing through SAMI, they take those specs and they standardize it and they put it on their site, and it says, this is what this is. Anything different from this, and it's no longer called this. The benefit is that, yeah, all of the companies out there can make all of the different barrels and all the different ammo and whatever they want to do. And that's when you sit back and you look at it and you go, that's, to me, that's one of the biggest wows, where I walk into my local gun shop and there's a 277 Wolverine rifle on the rack and there's a box of Wolverine ammo in the case. That's a great day. It's coming. I know it. And it's got nothing to do with me at this point. It's coming. It's happening on its own. But if you don't let go, it won't go to that level.
So it sounds kind of like catching a wave. If you don't catch it, it's not going to take you in.
Yeah.
If you mess up that part, it's going to pass you by, and you just don't get there. Or
you keep something in a cave
too early. And
you keep something in a cave, it stays in the cave. Yeah. That's all there is to it. You got to let people know about it and let people understand how it works and let them see the design concepts and understand why it's built the way it's built, and then let them have it. we're not going to make $1 million off of this cartridge. We're not, and I'm fine with that 100%. I don't care. We might make a little bit off of producing barrels and all that, but we're incredibly proud that, again, the community, our company, me personally, we're motivated enough and passionate enough to make this thing happen.
So let me ask you this. So in this process, in your mind, is there a thought that if you can become prolific enough as a developer of viable, valuable, unique cartridges, that at some point the industry will look to you as a breeder, a think tank, a place to go to kind of, help push into new markets? I mean, it would seem to me that the strong play is to find a company that can do this, being a Hornady or a Double Tap or Federal or Remington, and say, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to support these guys any way I can, whatever that looks like, so that I can be a part of the next cartridge in the early stages. So I can be first to market with the bolt gun, or first to market with the AR variant, or first to market with the box of ammo, and gather that important place of being the market leader. I mean, is that something conceptually that kind of rings true, or does it just not work that way?
Well, I think that there's potential for that to happen, but I don't think you'd be the only one. There's there are several companies out there. There's several people out there that are developing their own cartridges and taking them to market, and they've become incredibly successful based on the merits of the cartridge itself. And again, we're not going to be the only place to develop the latest and greatest, and our ego is in check, and we know that. There's some great cartridges out there that we didn't come up with. Somebody else did, and somebody else is going to come up with another great one that we didn't come up with, and it's going to be great. I think what you have out there in the world is maybe a dozen or so. There's a dozen or so of us out there that say, rifles off the rack, great, cool, Sammy spec stuff, cool. But I want to do this, I want to do that. And, the tinkerers out there, the mad scientists. And when you come up with a concept that shows its merits, through performance, you're going to attract the attention of whomever. I don't think any one company or even a couple companies would become the gurus, if you will, to the big boys as far as, this is the best think tank of mad scientist cartridge developers in the world, and we're only gonna, I think they know what they're doing. They watch and they listen and they monitor forums and Facebook and all that, and they say, wow, this one company came up with this thing and it's really taking off. We want to be involved so that we can make money and be popular, supporting that endeavor as well. There's about a dozen people out there that kind of do what we do. Half a dozen that are probably better known, and the whole take your own thing and kind of launch it to market. It is a niche, but there's about a half a dozen other people out there doing it, and they've done a very good job at it, and they've come up with some really awesome cartridges that none of us on our team or whatever have ever even thought of. So no, I don't think that our company would become the one, but I definitely think we would become one of, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. So is there a moment where you think, all right, 277 Wolverine, we're as ubiquitous as a 30-06 or 243 or the 308? Or is that kind of hard to become kind of a universally well-known, well-respected, accepted part of the fabric? I guess maybe the question is, when are you not a wildcat anymore?
Sure, that's actually one of my favorite questions. So, you're not a wildcat anymore when the world decides you're not a wildcat anymore. So there's NATO cartridges, right? So let's talk about SAMI and let's talk about NATO, and the different tiers of what that really means. 30-06, 308, 556, 762 by 39. You list them all. Those are NATO cartridges. So those are internationally adopted military cartridges that no matter where you go in the world, you're going to find some sort of an AK mag laying around with it, with ammo in it or something, and on the desert, whatever. Those are internationally accepted standard cartridges for their environment, being, warfare. Then you've got SAMI, which are standardized cartridges for the shooting community. Europe, the EU has its own thing going on, and the US has its own thing going on. And that's another level. If the cartridge like the 277 Wolverine ended up making it to SAMI spec, and it's out there in the world, and it's as commonplace as 308 or 30-06, it's still not technically like a NATO cartridge. So there's still that separation of what level did it actually make it to. But at the end of the day, once it's out there and it's in the market and it's on gun shop shelves and rifles are on the rack and built, and people know about it around the world, does it have the potential to become an international cartridge? Sure. Is it likely? Not likely. The amount of money that they have to invest in, a new or changing a cartridge as far as like military and all that sort of stuff goes is just insane. And lots of people have thoughts that their dream cartridge will become the new military cartridge, but most of us understand that it's just not going to happen. I think you have to be realistic about how far your project is going to go, and if you get to the point where you start hitting some roadblocks, because again, you have to have your ego in check. Folks don't like it. Okay, well then I like it. It's going to stay here. Or folks love it, and it continues to grow. You're going to get to the point where it's out there, it's everywhere, and now you're just watching it in the world doing what it does.
All right. Well, Mark, you have an incredible number of cartridges that we've kind of taken a look at through your website that you have brought to a point of commercial viability. I'm assuming that would be the case. Otherwise, you wouldn't put it up on your website. Can you walk us through some of your lineup and tell us, what is the cartridge for? How is it fit into kind of the shooter's understanding of why they'd want to get one?
Sure.
And let's start with the 277 Wolverine. So
great.
Go ahead.
It's a little bit, all right. So the Wolverine, so again, we're a big fan of it's just math, right? So what we want to say is we want the cartridge to speak for itself, based on its performance. And the Wolverine shoots the range of 90 to 110 grain bullet family. Those are its pet weights. And it's a great deer cartridge. It's a good hog cartridge, as long as you respect its range capabilities, right? I like to call it a 300-yard gun, no problem. Folks have taken deer out to 325, 350 with it, 400 pronghorn out to 350, 400 yards, you name it. It doesn't have so we're talking about a few things. So you've got bullet weight and velocity, which will correlate to energy, trajectory, you name it, right? So the 223, for example, or the 556 has a better trajectory than the Wolverine, but the Wolverine delivers more energy on impact, on target. Now, all of them, and this will be a fun thing for people to call it homework or whatever, but if people went and ran numbers on most of the 556 based cats or the 762 by 39 style family, you'll notice that they all kind of meet up at around 600 yards as far as energy goes, but the trajectories are different, which is a big component. So the Wolverine is a deer, target, home defense, self-defense, hog, predator, lighter varmint cartridge. It's incredibly versatile. I have no problem saying to the world that it's the most versatile cartridge in the standard AR-15 platform because of all the things it can do. Subs like the Blackout, just not as heavy because it's a 270 cal, not a 30 cal. It runs supers almost as fast as the 6.8 SPC, but doesn't need a mag change, a bolt change, or that type of deal. It runs 5.56 cases, which are cheap, and now we have our own cases through Starline, the first one. It is a 300-yard, all-day deer cartridge that is low recoil. It's great for recoil-sensitive youth, female shooters, male shooters. You could run, competition with it if you want. There's very incredibly accurate loads for it. There's great hunting loads for it. It's really versatile. You're looking at more energy on target than 5.56, but not the best trajectory as compared to it. Almost the velocity of 6.8 SPC, almost the weight of subsonic is 300 Blackout. It covers this, the circle diagram. When you look at the circle diagram of twist rates for 5.56 barrels, there's that diagram of 3 circles, and then somewhere there in the middle is the one you want. This is kind of in the middle of those 3 circles. It does a little bit of all of it. Super versatile. You're talking about a 90 grain bullet going 2750 out of a 16-inch barrel. People will sit back and they'll say, well, heck, my 77 or 75 grain 223 barely does that out of a 16-inch. Well, yeah, but your 75, 77 grain 223 bullet has a higher BC because of the shape and length of it, so the trajectory is going to be a little bit better. But energy and target's going to be a little bit better with the Wolverine. And walking people through this is challenging sometimes, but that's why we always like to say it's just math. So we like to put up charts and graphs and show here's how it all works. Wolverine's incredibly versatile, super cheap. The bullets are cheap, cases are cheap. Lake City 5.56 brass was the host brass for a long time and works great. We're throwing 100 grain bullets at 2650, 90 grain bullets at 2750, 110 grain at 2550. And when you look at the BCs of those bullets being 310, 323, 333, or whatever, it's the math tells you, wow, that's going to do very well. I don't know how many thousands of deer have fallen to the Wolverine at this point. If you really had the time to go and research the Facebook pages and the forum and all the hunting stories, and anywhere from hogs to, again, pronghorn antelope to mule deer to white-tailed deer to bobcats to groundhogs to whatever. It's killed just about everything other than bears at this point, I think. Even an elk. It's really versatile. It's stupid simple. It's a barrel swap in your AR-15. Again, you take the AR-15, you replace or 223 Savage, and you replace the barrel with a Wolverine barrel, and you're good to go. It double stacks in a 30-round PMag all day, no problem. There's a couple of videos out there of us running 100-round Beta Mag drums with it, no problem. There's no stack effect. There's no problems, no binding there. It's really, really easy to use, and what you get out of it with the little bit of work that you put into it is the payoff is big. We've got some other ones that are different uses, but the Wolverine's probably our best-selling, most popular cartridge.
Now, I'm a big fan of the 7mm Magnum, the Remington Magnum. So I see you have a 7mm Valkyrie AR.
Yep.
So tell me about that one.
So the 7 VAR is the brainchild of one of our family members named Bruce Finnegan. He is one of our most favorite mad scientists. A 6-dasher or 308 based cat running in an AR-15 platform. So there's this family separation between, let's say, like a 5.56 case based cartridge. Let's call it a 6.8 SPC case based cartridge, Grendel based cartridge, using all their cases. And then when you get into like the 308 class, people sit there and they say, well, you can't shoot a 308 in an AR-15, you need an AR-10. And we say, well, yeah, if you think within the box, absolutely. But what we did is there's a few manufacturers out there of bolts and extensions for bigger cased cats. The 7 VAR is based on a 308 size case cat. It shoots 140 grain bullets, going around 2,700 feet per second. It is one of those, shoot an elk at 400 or 500 yard type cartridges, but out of an AR-15 platform. Sure, you got to use the different bolt, and yeah, the barrel has a special extension, and you have to watch your pressures because it's a larger cartridge in the same size chamber and tenon. But the performance is that which people again have taken very large hogs, elk, out to very long ranges, and as far as target range goes, it's the BCs on the 7mm bullets are ridiculous. So it just goes and goes and goes. It is probably the most potent pseudo long range hunting cartridge that you can squeeze into the AR-15 platform. There's a lot of work involved in it. Depending on the cases that you use, there's neck turning involved, and that's when you get into the crazy, mad scientist folks that are, comfortable with that sort of a thing. But what we do is we offer preformed brass for it. You can load it up and shoot it. We offer the barrels with a matched bolt. You can buy preformed brass, so you don't have to get into the crazy neck turning and all that. It is basically a 7/8 in an AR-15 platform with some modifications.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the 358 Yeti.
Same concept, except it's basically a 358 Win, very close to it, in an AR-15 platform. So again, 308 base cat, special bolt, special extension. You got to make sure you're running the right mags, and you got to tweak them a little bit to make it run right. But once you get there, it runs smooth. I look at the 358 Yeti as kind of like my black bear gun. Like if I was walking through the woods and if I had some sort of an issue, like I'd love to have the 358 Yeti on the black bear type of problem. I look at the 7 VAR as kind of walking the hills and taking an elk with it type of cartridge. I look at the Wolverine as I can go anywhere from a PDW in the house out to an 18-inch, marksman style rifle, sharpshooter style rifle, deer rifle out to 300 and some odd yards. We have another one called the 6mm Mongoose, which is people like 6mm bullets, and they're an awesome class of bullets, and it does its own thing as well. The Yeti is like the Yeti, by the way, is a great name for it. It is kind of a Sasquatchy kind of a cartridge, and it is a hammer. It is a heavy hammer. You're running, let's see here, we got 180 grain bullets at a 2,500 plus feet per second out of a 16-inch barrel. Again, the math pretty much speaks for itself.
We like to refer to JD as our Yeti.
Nice.
Jeez, thanks. I did. There's somebody watching the YouTube feed right now, Marty, and he's like, I was expecting Reed to be like really old because you call him old and salty all the time. Yeah, Marty's a little disappointed you're not like 75 or 80. So
yeah, well, I don't think my voice says that. I'm a little younger, I would hope. Anyway,
like 65.
Tell me about the 30 Sabercat.
We're still in development on that one. It is very similar to the 7 VAR, but in 30 caliber. Now, 30 caliber bullets are incredibly popular. They're plentiful. They're very inexpensive nowadays. There's just a ton of them out there. The Sabercat is still in development, but the numbers are looking really, really good. And we've got our first batch of test barrels. We have kind of this program that we follow when we launch a cartridge. We've got a big batch of test barrels out there, and people are starting to upload, if you will, all of their load data and their performance. And it's looking pretty hot. It's looking pretty good. I'm impressed by it. I think it'll be one of the another one of the winners, if you will. Mass production going to Sammy and all that, you never know. Who knows? It depends on the community, right? If they take to it and all that. But it's definitely a pretty hot cartridge. It's if you like 30 cal and you don't mind tinkering, and you want to get the most that you can out of your AR-15 platform, it's just give it a little time, and when we formalized it, you'll like it.
So what's the parent cartridge on the Sabercat?
308 cat. They're the 308 base cats. The cases are the 308 size case head 473. the 6.5 by 47 Lapua cases, 308 cases. Some of them are using Dasher cases. They're all sort of in that same family, depending on which case seems to be working best for the actual cartridge.
And so in an AR, you're having to chop that case down, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the shoulders end up getting bumped back. The body gets resized to the dimension that we have dictated on the Raymer print, which we talked about earlier. The mouth gets opened up, the neck gets opened up to the caliber that it is. When it comes to some certain cartridges are going to be very, how do I put it, machine gun friendly, if you will. So if you're running, full auto, big mags, speed gunning, there's some certain properties to the cartridge or the case dimensions that you want to kind of, aid in that. But if all you're looking for is literally, I don't care if all I can get is a 5-round mag out of it. All I know is that I'm packing one hell of a wallop on the other end of the field. You can do some tinkering, and you can use some bigger cases and a little bit less taper in a different shoulder angle, and get as much powder into that sucker as you can without exceeding max pressures, and push 30 cal 7 mil 6.5 bullets as fast as you possibly can, and the higher class, which have the higher BCs. So again, you take all these different variables and you smash them together into this thing, and you say, is this thing going to work? Looks like it might. Let's give it a shot. And if it does, it does. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
There are some cartridges where I look at them and I just have the feeling that there's no real upside potential to the cartridge. Mm-hmm. It basically comes to you maxed out, and so there's like nowhere to go. Do you see that in some of your cartridges, or is that something that is just part and parcel to the business of wildcatting, that you're going to have a cartridge that's going to do everything you want it to do perfectly, but it's just never going to be any more than what it is? And we look at the 308, and people say that there is a great deal of utility to it because of the range. The 30-06 utility because of the range and what you can do with the cartridge. Is that like a limiting factor in where you start out?
Well, I think you have to be realistic, and not unlike the car comparison. No matter how much you soup up your Mustang, the best you're going to run is a 4.2 or whatever, unless you start getting into crazy rocket engines and all kinds of weird stuff, right? So again, you have to be realistic and understanding that the overall concept and the overall platform that you're actually running. So we could take a full size 308 case, put a 7mm bullet in it, which is a 7.8, and shoot it out of an AR-10, which is this bigger, heavier rifle, and get a better velocity than we're getting out of a 7 VAR out of a 15. And then people might say, well, I can just buy an AR-10. Well, understand that your AR-10 weighs almost twice as much as an AR-15 does. So you got to look at what are all the ancillary benefits to this cartridge and the platform that it runs in, right? So you can go back to the Wolverine because it's one of my favorites. So we've got Wolverine AKs getting made. We've got so you're looking at 5.439, 5.56, AK variants that would easily run and will easily run the Wolverine. So it's really, you can use it in a bunch of different rifles. So it's a benefit of it. So even though it's not a 270 cal bullet going at 270 wind velocities, it's what you can do with it in the different platforms is a lot of the benefit. Being able to take a 358 or a 7mm bullet in an AR-15 sized platform that weighs 6.5 pounds, and you're delivering that bullet weight at that velocity out of that platform, is when people raise their hand and say, yeah, a 5-round mag with that is fine because I just sit in my stand and that's perfect. I don't need to run 30-round mags out of it. But to answer your question is, yeah, you're going to hit a ceiling. You're going to hit a ceiling with anything. That car will only go so fast. That cartridge will only push that weight bullet that fast. And you can't really do better than that before you get unsafe and you start blowing stuff up, or you have to develop some sort of a different platform for it to run in. And, a lot of people don't understand this, is that a lot of it's based around the case itself. The case itself can only handle so much pressure. So even if you built this steel block that you shoved this case in and shot it out of it, that's great, but the case itself is going to fail at a certain point. So there's your ceiling. Your ceiling is in the amount of pressure you can use in the platform, and the amount of pressure that the case can take. Because if you can run whatever you want, but if you're blowing a case every round, you're gonna blow yourself up at some point. So yeah, they all have a ceiling, but you have to be respectful of it, and then you have to be realistic about it. Like these are the limitations of this cartridge, and I'm comfortable with that.
Well, have you ever gone so far as to look at a cartridge and say, because of where the ceiling is, this is a non-starter for me, and let's go back to the drawing board and begin again?
I think I look at a lot of the variables again. So what platforms can I run this cartridge in? What are the different uses of this potential uses of this cartridge, whether it be anywhere from the basic home defense style stuff to hunting stuff to pseudo military, and what can you actually do with it? Again, I think you have to respect that they're all going to have their limitations, and not unlike cars, some people are not going to be interested in it because they're just not interested in it. You've got guys that are diehard 6.5 millimeter bullet fans out there, so all they'll buy is 6.5 millimeter cartridges, whether they're quote unquote good or not, and that's okay. That's great. If your brand of knife is Benchmade, and you're loyal to it, then always buy a Benchmade. That's cool. No big deal.
So what I hear from you is that regardless of where the ceiling is, regardless of the cartridge, there's a utility for it somewhere. And whether that's commercially viable or a small group's pet project, doesn't really matter. It's just where it sits, right?
Absolutely. So let's pretend we were a hammer company, right? Now, let's say that we had a basic sledgehammer. Let's say that we had a basic framing hammer. And let's say we had a basic tack or finishing hammer, right? And those are the three basic models. And in between each one of those, we had like ones with little different shaped heads and maybe a little half a claw, one with like some sort of a hatchety thing on the side and a nail puller gizmo on the. Now, the three standards are probably going to be the most popular because they work, right? And all the in-between ones are going to be like, it serves this purpose very well, but not a lot of others. And it comes down to what it is that you want the cartridge to do, and do you have a realistic expectation of that? So, if you don't, a sledgehammer makes a lot of mess. A tack hammer can't drive a railroad spike. Please be realistic as to what it is that you're trying to get out of it. But then you can swing a tack hammer all day and your arm doesn't get tired. You can swing a sledgehammer 15 times, or maybe 25 times, 15 times, right? And now you're tired. So you got to take all of that into perspective and say, what's really the utility? What's really the utility use of this thing?
So one last cartridge we want to go over before we start inundating you with listener questions. Tell me about the 6 millimeter Mongoose.
The 6 millimeter Mongoose is kind of a secret. It hasn't become incredibly popular yet, but it's one of our favorite cartridges. One of my good friends and part of the family, a guy named Wade, said, I like the 6 TCU, but I can't really use it in a 15. And I like the 6x45, but it's got a couple problems with it. I want something that's kind of both. And what ended up happening is he drew up the 6 millimeter Mongoose. Now what it is it's kind of a 6x45 on steroids. Now some Wildcats, which we can talk about, are really, 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 really easy to get into, like the 6x45 or the Wolverine, where it's just a little bit of case. You size your case and it kind of does it for you, and you load it and you shoot it. The 6x45 is a simple neck up in a 223, but then you get into like other cartridges where it's like this, you're changing shoulder angles and like you might collapse them, and you better be experienced in reloading. The 6 millimeter Mongoose is a 6x45 on steroids, and with the higher BC bullets, you're not diving the ogive of the bullet into the case mouth. So what that means is you're going to get a little bit better accuracy out of it. You're looking at more case capacity for powder. So you're pushing the same weight bullets as a 6x45 faster, and you can use more of the different weight range with it. It's another barrel swap cartridge in your AR-15. It does not double stack in a 30-round PMAG perfectly. There is a little bit of binding because of it. But if you're not running a, you're not running a 40-degree shouldered cartridge out of a 30-round PMAG. Those they just don't go together. That's not what you're buying it for, or what you're using it for. It is, and now, I may hear about this later, forums and you name it, but it is, even though it's a smaller case, it is a slight competitor to a cartridge like the Grendel as far as being able to use really high BC bullets with really good velocities that have really good trajectories and less drift at longer ranges. Is it the same as a Grendel? No. Will the Grendel always be faster? Yes. Is it using a heavier, higher BC bullet? Yes, because of what it is. You can draw it and be like, oh, that's going to be able to do this more than this. But it's kind of a competitor. It's pretty close. So if you're looking for not a Grendel type of cartridge, and I'll say Grendel type because I don't want to hear from the Grendel guys about how I said the Mongoose is better than the Grendel, because I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if you're into 6mm bullets and you want to use 5.56 cases and you want to kind of hang out with the Grendel-esque, type of folks, or whatever, you can. Wade competes against Grendel guys all the time with his 6mm Mongoose and wins, but that's Wade and it's his cartridge and he's a good shot. I don't know what to tell you. But you got to be realistic again. It's a 5.56 case. It's only got so much room. It's only got so much boiler room. It only holds so much powder. You can only go to a certain weighted bullet, and that's that. Does it do really, really well? Yeah. Has it taken, again, deer, varmint, you name it? Yeah, all day long. It works great. Simple barrel swap, same thing. Low investment, yep. Barrels are like $250 or something, and a die set is like $90, and you're good to go.
I think that covers the basics of what we understand about your lines. Is there anything that you have that's out there now, or that you're kind of looking at for the future you want to tell the listeners about, or if we kind of covered all the things that are the sweet spot for Mad Dog Weapon Systems? I
think every time we think we're good, we end up with something else. The Yeti and the VAR cover a lot of ground there. The Mongoose covers a lot of ground on its own. The Wolverine being incredibly versatile. Is there room for more? Yeah. I mean, how many different cars do you like? How many different hammers do you own? How many different screwdrivers do you own? How many different knives do you own? I mean, they all have their place. They all do their certain things great. And that's what you want them for. That's the equation that people need to think about. The equation is simply this. Here's this cartridge. Here's what it does. Is what it does what I want to do with it? Does it accomplish these goals and do some other things? Is it really good at just a few things but not great at others? How much of those three circles does this cartridge cover for me? And does it do what it is that I want to do with it? If it doesn't, well, then it's not for you. But if it does, then it is. And if it doesn't do the other things as great as some other cartridge, well, then get the other cartridge, but then that other cartridge won't do some of the things that this one does. So it's all, again, preference, choice, and what it is you're looking to get out of it.
Well, let me go this far. What I want to see is 1,000-yard projectile, 1,000-yard cartridge for the AR-15. Yep. Something that is going to really be a tack driver.
Yeah. Okay. So same family, SaberCat 7 VAR. Right now we're having a lot of fun with it because we're calling it the 6.5 something or other, or the 2 or something or other, because we've kind of run out of cool, crafty names at the moment to call it, and we've still improved. But we have a 6.5 version of the 7 VAR / SaberCat coming out shortly, which will, provide better performance than the Grendel, which will almost match the performance of a Creedmoor, and it will fit in the AR-15 platform. Yes, you have to use your special mags and tweak them. Yes, it has a special bolt and extension, but when you're sitting there with your 6.5, 7 pound AR-15 platform rifle, shooting a cartridge with almost the performance of a 6.5 Creedmoor, we're gonna. I think
That's pretty impressive.
We think people are going to understand the benefit of that. That is currently there's barrels chambered and being shot right now, so that's not too far away. I think as far as your 1,000-yard target style, but squished, if you will, into an AR-15 platform, I think you're going to like that one.
Which I just want to get slung up like I did in the Marine Corps with my A2 and a web sling and start throwing them out to 1,000. That's what I'd like to do.
Oh man, I can't even see down iron sights anymore. I think it's just my age at this point, but I've got a lot of respect for anybody that qualified with A2 sights. Let me just put it that way, because I can barely see across the room right now. So
I'm wondering what extinct animal is going to be included in the name of that cartridge. That's what I'm trying to run through my head. Like, mammoth, isn't that cool? Pterodactyl.
Oh, mastodon.
There you go.
We're thinking Timberwolf.
Timberwolf. Yeah, there you go. I like that.
So we're not sure yet. We've gone. I actually pushed. So here's the kind of a wacko I am. I actually pushed to keep it something or other. But the team is kind of pushing back on me. I think that's kind of clever. The 264 something or other, like kind of just showing like, it's the 6.5 whatever. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. The whatchamacallit or something. But I think that is kind of the fun of it, which is you get to come up with these names, and like I talked about Red Dawn with the Wolverine. People get it wrong a lot, and that's okay. I don't feel bad. It has nothing to do with the Claw Wolverine guy or the cartoon or anything like that. It has everything to do with Red Dawn and the Wolverines. It's that. But that's part of the fun of it. It's your creation, your painting, if you will, and you get to call it what you want to call it. So it might be Timberwolf. It might be something else. I don't know, but it'll be out shortly.
Well, I tell you what, we've collected a couple of questions from the listeners, or actually JD has. So JD, why don't you start us out and see if we can get through these here.
Tyler wrote in, asked he asked for your top 5 to 10, but give me your top 2 if you can, because I realize that they're all probably partial to you. The top 2 calibers and the intended purpose for them. I think we covered most of that in the main topic. And then primary, are you going to just focus on the smaller platform AR-15s, or will you ever go up to an AR-10?
Okay. So if he asked for 2, I'll do 2. The Wolverine is our claim to fame name, what you name it. I think another one's coming up behind it. So the 358 Yeti has become incredibly popular, incredibly fast. Right now, there's more demand for Wolverine and Yeti than there is for any of the other cartridges we offer. So I hope that answers the question as far as the market goes. We are moving to the AR-10 platform, and we have some prints drawn for some certain things, but we're trying to kind of wrap up the 15 platform with the different things we want to do before we move to the 10 platform, because it's a whole nother platform. It's a whole nother set of stuff. We believe in structured growth. So right now we're kind of focusing on 15s. And once we feel comfortable that we have the majority of what we want out of the 15 platform, we'll start on the AR-10 platform.
John wrote in and said, what can we expect as far as factory support for ammunition, firearms parts, and reloading components going forward?
Cool. Reloading components, I don't have a lot of control over, obviously. There's bullets, powder, and cases for just about you name it, everything out there. No matter where you go, you can get what you want, pick your menu. As far as ammunition support, we have partnered with a couple of really good smaller shop ammunition companies that are launching factory ammo for some of our cartridges, and cases, ready-to-load cases. There's JB's Firearms out of Wisconsin, out of Grantsburg, Wisconsin, that does a lot of Wolverine, is going to get into Mongoose, does some 7.62 by 40, which is not our cartridge, but we offer it. There's Outdoor Shooter Supply. There's another company called Pegasus that's coming up to do Wolverine ammo. And again, we offer ready-to-load brass for a lot of the cartridges that we have where there's not a company making actual ammunition, because a lot of our our customers are reloaders, so buying ready-to-load brass is not a problem.
Daniel writes in and asked, I'm pretty sure he's one of the forum members, asked, will the 277 work well in belt-fed weapons?
If you want, I'd be happy to. If there was a way I could do it, there's a guy that built a saw, a Wolverine saw, and posted all of his full auto videos, suppressed and unsuppressed, of belt-fed Wolverine through his 249 from all different kinds of angles. And it's you talked to Reed. You asked me earlier about milestones. I mean, when I saw that, I didn't really know how to react. It was like one of those, like, I'm just going to go in a room by myself for 5 minutes and drool. The Wolverine's running out of saws, bolt action guns. You can, anything that a 223 runs in, basically, as long as you can get a barrel made for it. Full auto beta mags out of AR-15s, you name it. It is not only a hunting, but it's also a combat-y, self-defense-y type of cartridge as well. It runs beautifully full auto. It runs beautifully full auto out of an AR-15, and it runs even, more majestically out of a M249 belt fed, to the point where, you just start get the shakes. You know what I mean?
Wow. Jeff in up next says, best caliber choice, an AR-15 platform, in your opinion, for whitetail. He's got a couple qualifiers here. Bullet weight from 90 to 120 grains, range out to 200 yards. He says, I'm leaning towards something in the 9 or 6 millimeter bullet section.
Sure. So if he's a 6mm fan, and he's looking for, what was it, 90 to what?
90 to 120 grains.
Okay, so 120 out of a 6mm in an AR-15 is going to be a little bit rough. So the Mongoose, for example, will run anything from 55 grain shot bullets all the way up to the 105 AMAX, which is a premier target bullet. 95 SSTs. 126 mil out of a 15 platform is a little rough if you're looking for a more versatile. Now, if you want to run one of the more boutique fat cased 6mm cartridges out of a 15, you can, but it's going to be one of those, again, where it's you're loading like 3 or 4, maybe 5 rounds in a mag. And there's a few options out there that Google will help with. 6 mil out of a 15 platform, you're going to be capped if you're using the 5.56 base case. You're going to be capped at around 100 grains either way. But there are options, the 6mm AR and all that sort of stuff. But if it wasn't 6 mil, I could probably answer a little bit better. But I'm sorry, but the Mongoose, you can run 105s out of your 15 all day long. So that's pretty close to 120, I guess.
And Smoke and Gun Labradors from the YouTube feed asked about, what about the 257 Ocelot?
So our 6mm Mongoose, which we again is one of our little secret weapons that I think is going to take off organically over time. One of our family members, again, asked us to make a 25 cal version of it, and we let him pick the name and everything, and he drew the logo, and it's cool. It's a 257 ASA. It's basically a 25 cal 6mm Mongoose. And there's, again, not only the cars, there's a lot of people out there that, I like 25 cal. I want 25 cal. Okay, well, here's your 25 cal version of the Mongoose. I want 6mm. Here's your 6mm cartridge. It is currently in beta. We have 5 test barrels out there that are doing pretty well. We've got another 6 coming in that we're going to send out to some folks and see what they do. But it's very comparable to the Mongoose, just in 25 cal.
And that was the last of the listener questions that I had called in or had sent in. So, Reed, I got to ask you, after we sat down here with Mark, I was expecting good stuff, but I was kind of blown away by the content of the show today. Learned an awful lot. And so for you, do you see one of these calibers in a future builds for you?
Yeah, I see about 4.
Yeah, you've been bitten by the bug, man. That's how it goes. It's a disease, I'm telling you.
Well, I've got enough builds that I think I could get rid of 4 barrels and figure out the bolt situation, and I'd be back in business. Mm-hmm. So I might have to send you an email and see what you guys have on your retail list, so I can see where I need to go for my next build.
Sure. if we don't have it, we'll get it for you, Reed. No problem. And if you need us to post some of your shirts up on our website and stuff like that, we'd be happy to promote and help there as well. So no problem at all.
Awesome.
Hey, I did have one question for you.
Yeah.
So you manufacture barrels, you create your own cartridges. So what portion of the barrel manufacturing is based on traditional cartridges? I mean, do you have the reamers for a lot of the run-of-the-mill, well-known, already established cartridges, or
only
do you just not worry about them?
Yeah, only a couple. It's not regular it's not our regular standardized cartridge is not our claim to fame. So we do have 223. We offer match grade 223 wild 24, 22, 20 and 18-inch fluted and non-fluted stainless barrels. They don't move because unfortunately in the market nowadays a lot of folks can just go to some other place online and buy a 223 barrel for whether they know it's a good barrel or not. But the competition is kind of rough. But we also offer 7.62x40, which is a guy named Kurt. A lot of people don't know this, but a guy named Kurt actually developed it, and it got brought into by Wilson Combat. We offer the 7.62x40 because we like it, and it's not ours. We just like it. We think it's great, and that I think it goes back to one of the questions earlier about what are the limitations, or how do you know you've had enough? We're not, or we're going to be the guru. We're not going to be the guru. The 7.62x40 is an awesome cartridge. They're all great in their own way. 7.62x40 is great, and it's not ours, but we make barrels for it, and we sell dies for it.
Now here's I think probably the most important question that the show wants to have answered. What are the chances of you guys working on a rotating bolt setup for a 357?
Oh my gosh!
I listened to part of last week's with Faxon, and is this part of the? Yeah. So Faxon is one of the companies. Pat is one of the people I've been going back and forth with. We're probably not going to offer that anytime soon. Yeah.
Well,
but we will strongly consider it. And by strongly considered, I mean please feel free to shoot me an email requesting it.
I just want someone to do all the expensive legwork to make it work with a rotating bolt instead of a blowback. But
it's for Reed and one guy in Alaska. They're putting together
I have a particular fondness for that cartridge, and I've already Lone Wolf took it upon themselves to include me in a request to do some shooting with one of their prototypes, and so
nice
357 SIG AR, and I was already a big fan of the cartridge, but there just isn't any love out there in the AR world for what I love most. So
we love the 357 SIG because it serves a purpose. Period. If it doesn't do what other people want, then that's not for them, and that's fine. But it's still great. I would be careful of what else I compare cartridges to, but variety is the spice of life. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I tell you what, this has been outstanding. We really appreciate you coming on. But before we let you go, is there anything you want to tell our listeners about? How can they find you on the internet?
Sure.
What's really got you guys excited today, right now?
Yeah.
What can they look forward to in the future?
All right, I get to do a shameless plug thing. Awesome. So our, just Google the MSR Evolution Forum. That'll take you to the what is sometimes known as the Wildcat Forum. It's our friends and family talking about not only current standardized SAMI cartridges, but focusing a lot on Wildcat design and low development and of other cartridges. Mad Dog is growing in a direction of we have our market. We're probably not ever going to produce things like the 300 Blackout or 223 Wild or anything like that in mass production. We're going to focus on what it is that we like to do, and we're going to focus on what it is that we're good at. But I guess at the end of the day, and I've probably said I want to reiterate 5 times throughout this whole session, but I want to reiterate that it's about the community, right? So there's no dumb question, there's no dumb concept. If you ever want to just talk AR-15s, MSRs, whatever the term we have to use nowadays, I don't care. If you want to talk cartridges and development and mags and how does this work and that work, everyone will welcome you at the forum. Everyone will welcome you on any of our Facebook pages. There's Wolverine 277 Wolverine Facebook page, there's 6 Man Mongoose discussion page, Yeti, VAR, all that. And it's the same core group with different, fans of different cartridges. But we are one of those organizations where we want to hear from people, and we want questions, and we want opinions, and we want feedback. So please participate, and that would be very complimentary us if you ever wanted to join the forum or just ask us some questions. And I've never met a better group of people that were more willing to help. Mad Dog Weapons is the name, the .com is our website. Mad Dog Weapon Systems is the name of the company. My name's Mark, just a guy who's, steering the boat at this point. Great group of people, super helpful, willing to do whatever we can. Shirt off our back type of a group. And I'll see whoever that's out there at SHOT. So I'll be there this year. I'll be walking around.
When will the 1,000-yard AR cartridge? When do you guys think you guys will have that up?
264 something or other.
Yeah.
There's a barrel. There's two barrels. There's 2 barrels made right now. This is another pet project of Wade's. Wade is probably going to tweak the reamer one more time, he said, after doing some testing. So tweaking a reamer means probably another, where are we, October 25th. So I'd say mid-November. Wade's a pretty anal cat. So figure end of November, he'll have decided on what the reamer print is supposed to be. And then we can order tooling. So that's December, January, barrel blanks, January, February. I would say in February of 2018, be prepared for a full-blown launch of the 264 6.5 something or other Timberwolf, whatever the heck it's going to be.
Nice. Well, when you're at SHOT Show, we definitely like to connect and talk to you face to face.
Oh yeah,
and see what you got going on and get your thoughts on what you see at the show. And then when that comes out, we're definitely interested in talking and experimenting with that. That would be fun to do. While Reed has a couple of rifles he can adapt, I have more than enough lowers that need barrels. Probably like
JD, I heard you're a builder that has a pile of lowers that are just waiting to become something.
Like 89 or 90 or 100 of them. They just multiply like rabbits in the safe. So
I pictured like 20. So you're definitely that's great. I'll make you guys a deal. We would be happy to provide either of you or both of you, whichever one it is that wants to go out there and play with it, one of the 6.5, 264 something or other, wherever the heck it is, barrels to play with. And if you like it, you keep it. If you don't, you send it back. How's that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
I wouldn't give it to JD. He hasn't even come to the table with a finished rifle yet. So
Reed may assume room temperature by the time we get to that part next year.
That's
so
awesome.
we have the legacy of the show to continue. So I appreciate that generosity. I would definitely take you up on that. That'd be fun to do.
Gentlemen, I just found another detent on my desk, so it sounds like I got to go build a rifle.
That sounds like my garage.
All right. Well, I'm going to read this out real quick. Send us any questions or comments, ar15.podcast@gmail.com. Subscribe and listen to the AR-15 podcast for free on iTunes or Stitchers. Hey, it is really awesome of you if you can leave. If you enjoy the show and you enjoy the guests and the content that we work hard to put out, if you leave us a 5-star review, it really bumps up the show when people are searching for firearms or gun or black rifle related shows. So we'd really appreciate that 5-star review. Share your pictures with us on Instagram. I have decided to get active over there. There will be some new shoots, new photos out this weekend, but we love seeing your builds. Share them with us. Tag us AR-15 podcast or hashtag AR-15 podcast. I will rebrand those things and share them like crazy. Follow us on Facebook. Join the discussion there, facebook.com/AR-15 podcast. You can also support the show by going to the Patriot Patch Company. There's a link in the show notes. Also, you can search Patriot Patch Company and look for partners. We have teamed up with the Patriot Patch Company and Jake to release the AR-15 podcast shirt, patches, and stickers. A portion of each purchase comes back to support the show. So we'd appreciate if you check it out. Check it out at patriotpatch.co. And with that, episode 225 in the books. Reed.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Mark. Thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. And if you want to have me back for episode number 277,
we'll absolutely have you back. But that's going to be like another year.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll remember it and I'll wait, and that's great.
All right, everybody, have a great week.
Thanks, guys.